Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for joining us. Well, a gas tax holiday, but first, yes, we have a major primary on May 17. As they say, let's get to it.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, we're going to start with talking about some of the big changes that have taken place in the gubernatorial and Senate primaries, and joining me to do that is John Micek. He's the editor-in-chief of Pennsylvania Capital Star, and Brad Bumsted. He's the bureau chief of the caucus. All right, Brad, big news this week. A guy named Donald J. Trump, everybody knows who he is and was, I guess, former president of the United States, gives an endorsement to Dr. Oz, the TV personality.
Yeah, this is one of the most closely watched Senate races in the country. Trump comes out with this endorsement of Oz. It upsets a lot of conservatives who feel that Oz is not conservative enough. But it's really critical because Oz and his opponent, top opponent, let's put it that way, Dave McCormick, are virtually in a dead heat, according to a Franklin and Marshall poll out today as we film this. And can an endorsement change a few percentage points? That's all it would really need to do, assuming those kind of numbers held up, to have a difference. On the other hand, a lot of people say, okay, great, he endorsed him. McCormick can still win on his own. So it remains to be seen, but any would take it.
Yeah, and John, there are a large number of voters in all of these races that are undecided as we approach, May 17th primary, about a month away.
Yeah, I mean, the future really belongs to the undecideds. We saw in Emerson College poll just last week, about a third of voters are still undecided. The one thing that Emerson College poll did show, though, Terry, is when the undecideds were asked which way they were leaning towards David McCormick. Right. So the question becomes, with the president, as Brad just said a moment ago, with the president getting into the race, does that swing a couple of percentage points in favor of Mehmet Oz? Maybe, and the big question, of course, is all of these candidates were gunning for the presidential seal of approval. David McCormick wanted it, certainly, but if you look at Oz, perhaps the former president saw somebody cut from the same cloth. Former president of ex-reality TV star Dr. Oz is a creation of Oprah Winfrey, apparently popular with the former first lady as well. So maybe he thought he was the better horse, despite some of these problems he has with the conservative base.
Yeah, reportedly Melania Trump favored Oz, and women voters apparently like Oz more. So that's something, how much that may have weighed into Trump's calculation, if at all, who knows. Yeah. One thing that your former colleague, Burwood Yost at F&M told me yesterday is you just can't figure the logic in terms of what Trump is doing in all of this. It might just be reality TV show. There are things that just maybe defy the traditional political considerations.
Yeah. Well, we have to find out what the endorsement really means. In the Emerson Hill poll, there was a huge percentage of Pennsylvania voters who were undecided. They had it close to 50%, but a larger percentage said it matters who Trump endorses. I mean, obviously, we have to see how that plays out.
He still has great power within the Republican base. I mean, that's why all these candidates are racing down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. Again, does this move a couple of points for Mehmet Oz? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, but the bottom line here is there doesn't seem that much has affected this race. We're not talking about candidates that are getting 25, 30, 35% of the vote. We've got a large number of candidates who are, below 10 percentage points. They're not likely to be a factor, right?
Right, but the key is this undecided. It's almost half in the F&M poll.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real factor in all of this.
Yeah.
And which way those people swing.
Is that because people don't know enough about them? I mean, you can't turn on. The media outlets are filled with commercials. There's probably going to be more spending in this election than any statewide election by the time we get through the fall in American
Terry,
Pennsylvania
this is
history.
a party primary. I mean, this is a race for the base of the base. So you're talking about a self-selected audience of people who are really, really involved. And we'll see 20% turnout.
Yeah.
The rest of Pennsylvania is out there living their lives. They're thinking about inflation. They're thinking about gas prices. They're thinking about the pandemic, maybe. They're thinking about the war in Ukraine. There's a lot of stuff that's devouring voters' bandwidth right now.
And
which two boring white guys are running for Senate is probably not right up there at the moment.
And you think the turnout is going to be around 20% given all the hype?
I mean, it's a primary. I mean, that's historically the case. I mean, 20, 25%, who knows?
You agree with that?
I do.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about, we have an update on the governor's election. Obviously, we're talking about the Republican primary since Josh Shapiro, I'll call him the Democratic nominee. I shouldn't say that yet. We still have an election to go,
Likely
but he's running.
Nominee.
Presumptive. Yeah.
Likely, nominee. We'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, we're talking about the Pennsylvania primary elections. They're coming up on May 17th. John Micek, let's start with you. All right, we had some interesting developments in the governor's race. I know you're smiling.
That is one way of putting it.
That's one way of putting it, yeah. All right, explain what they are.
It was a bad week, Terry. I think it's fair to say for former federal prosecutor Bill McSwain, who's seeking the Republican nomination. If there is such thing as an anti-endorsement, the former President Donald Trump gave that to Bill McSwain this past week. Jumping out, releasing a statement calling McSwain, among other things, a coward and urging his voters not to vote for him because he didn't do enough to overturn an election that Joe Biden legitimately won, and there was no evidence of voter fraud, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
He didn't believe in widespread voter fraud.
Because there wasn't any.
He wouldn't investigate it.
And wouldn't investigate it. So
the
former president came out, kind of smacked Bill McSwain around. We've got new, as we were saying off air a minute ago, we've got new Franklin and Marshall polling numbers out this week that show that basically a three-horse race between McSwain, Doug Mastriano, the state senator from Franklin County down there in south central PA, and Lou Barletta, the former U.S. congressman from Hazleton. That's been how it is pretty much, or that's how it's been rather pretty much all along. And again, a broad swath of voters are undecided.
Now, one thing about Mastriano is, of all the candidates running, I think in the Republican primary, he has the most support among Trump activists, given the fact that he believes widespread corruption. He took a group down to Washington on January 6th.
Got Fulton County election results to deal with that. Eventually chaired a committee briefly that was going to look into the election, and then was removed by who? Jake Corman, Senate Republican pro tem. So, but Mastriano, no question, has this ground support. He has sort of the core of the Trump base across Pennsylvania. Yeah. If you go western Pennsylvania, drive out, there are Mastriano signs all over the place. I mean, he's got that ground support. So, one thing I find interesting is if Trump would endorse someone else, say Barletta, does Mastriano have enough support even to defeat that? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, the former president has not weighed into the gov race yet, except maybe he did kind of a little bit this past week. Yeah. Jake Corman, as Brad was saying a second ago,
he's the president pro tem,
the highest ranking Republican in the state Senate. It briefly looked like he was going to drop out of the race for governor on Tuesday last. A couple hours later, he announced, hang on, flag on the play. He apparently got a phone call from the former president who told him to stay in the race. To what degree that was a face-saving measure is not clear. As it turns out, county election directors said they'd already started printing out ballots and sending out overseas and military ballots. So even if Jay Corman wanted to drop out, his name still would have appeared on the ballot anyway.
But he can suspend his campaign.
He can suspend his campaign, but it would have been a logistical headache for county elections officials.
Yeah.
You know, who knows how the former president was thinking on this. Maybe if he makes it known that he talked to Jay Corman and urged him to stay in, maybe that draws some points away also from Bill McSwain. So no one knows how the former president thinks.
But right now, if my count is correct, we have 9 candidates. If Corman got out, there would be 8. And many of these candidates are in single digits. Again, we've got another one of these primaries where the voters don't know a lot about these candidates.
Of the 9 candidates, you don't have a single one above 20%. And what this reminds me of, your viewers have seen countless video of tanks bogged down in the mud in Ukraine, Russian tanks coming in that, half battered with rocket-propelled grenades and stuck in the mud. These are 9 people, and nobody's moving forward. There are only 3 at the top with double digits, the ones we've talked about, and one of those was battered to the point that we don't know whether it's going to be fatal for McSwain or not, but he took a heck of a hit. Now maybe people will go the other way and say that was unfair.
Final word, John.
It's anyone's ball game at this point. Again, the undecideds are going to determine this race.
All right, thanks for the update. All right, how about a gas tax holiday, I should say. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, it's all in the news. Many of the candidates running for statewide office are talking about a gas tax holiday of one sort or another. Joining me to talk about that is Bob Latham. He's the Executive Vice President of the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors. Bob, welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you, Terry.
Well, am I right about this? It seems like every day another candidate, whether they're running for the state house or the state senate or statewide for governor, say, gas tax holiday, gas tax holiday.
Yeah,
get into that.
The only thing I can say, it's a silly idea. We pay a lot of taxes, a lot of different taxes, so why the gas tax? And I think the reason is because cynically, some of the candidates look at the fact that we have the price of gasoline on billboards or large signs all over town. So
and the gas tax, price for gas is high.
The price for gas is high. That's true. There's and that's a result of the oil market globally. That's very simple. When you look at the tax rates at the federal level, it hasn't changed since 1994. The price of gas has gone up like an electrocardiogram, up and down. When you look at the price of or the tax on gasoline at the state level, it hasn't moved since 2016. So with the same tax rate a year ago, when gas was $2.60 a gallon at the pump, and the same tax as when a month ago it was $4.65 a gallon, and the same tax rate as today when it's moved down another 30 cents. So we have empirical studies that show that when states monkey with their gas tax, either raise it or decrease it, the net impact on the consumer at the price of the pump is about a third. So if you suspend 22 cents a gallon of gas tax and totally blow up your infrastructure investment and your roads and bridge program, the consumers will see maybe 5 cents movement, which they've already seen 6 times that amount in the last 2 weeks.
All right, let's talk about where does the gas tax money go?
Well, by Constitution, it goes to improvements for roads and bridges and safety on roads and bridges. And what people don't realize is that a large portion of that, about $600 million a year, is goes to local governments to maintain local roads. We have 40,000 miles of roads in state-owned roads in Pennsylvania, and we have 70,000 miles of local government roads in Pennsylvania. And how do local governments pay for roads and their other services? Through property tax. So if you suspend the gas tax, that automatically reduces money to local governments. They're going to have to increase their property taxes or let their local roads fall apart.
And like you, I drive around the state a good bit, and the roads are still not in very good shape, are they? And there's a lot of construction going on.
Well, we have, of course, this year we're going to be benefiting from a federal funding bill that passed Congress last year. We see a 20% increase over the previous couple of years in funding for road and bridge rehabilitation, but that would be severely impacted by a drop or a suspension or a reduction in our fuel tax. And one other point I want to make is, you see candidates make a big deal about, Pennsylvania has the second highest gas tax in the country. That's true. But we made a conscious decision, a policy decision, to make the registration fees and our license fees, which we would call the point of entry to the system, to be low compared to other states. If you're in Virginia, they may have a lower gas tax, but you're paying a personal property tax on your vehicle every year, hundreds and hundreds of dollars on the value of your vehicle. Other states have very high registration fees. What we've said is in Pennsylvania, if you can own a vehicle, but if you don't drive as much, you don't pay as much. So somebody like me that drives all over the state, I pay more because I'm using the system, and the user fee is assessed on me in the form of the gas tax. Yeah. If I only own a vehicle and I only drive around town a couple times a week, I don't pay as much into the system because I'm not using it.
Sure. Look, we're going to run to a break. Work zone awareness, I mean, that's hugely important with accidents and in work zones. There are accidents almost everywhere, but I want you to focus on work zone awareness points. I know you're going to make a couple of them after these words.
Thank you.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, what's going on in work zones across the state of Pennsylvania? Bob, take it away.
You teed it up, Terry. I mean, as far as a lot of road work going on around the state, we're rehabilitating roads now. We're not building new ones, which means we have to do the work while traffic is adjacent to the work zone. Yeah. And unfortunately, what we've seen over the last 2 years is a proliferation of people recklessly driving, speeding, and it makes it very dangerous. We were very heartened to see the amount of fatalities drop to the lowest level in 2018, and since then it's gone through the roof. So we're really trying to raise awareness. It's a very easy way to avoid accidents, and that's slow down. I mean, 55 miles an hour is not that slow to go through a work zone when you've got pinched lanes and
people are
barriers.
Doing 75, right?
And and think about if you're trying to do your work next to something like that. We've had a number of unfortunate occurrences here, 1,600 work zone crashes in Pennsylvania last year, the other thing to understand is that 9 out of 10 fatalities in work zones are not the workers themselves, it's the motorists that's involved. So it's very easy to have a positive impact on this, and that's really just to slow down. Now, a couple of years ago, we passed the legislation that authorizes automated speed enforcement. So if you
What's that? Explain what that is.
What that is you have essentially a camera set up in certain work zones around the state. And if the camera observes your vehicle going more than 11 miles over the speed limit, so you can still go 60, 65 and not get ticketed. I'd like to see it less than that, but that was the compromise. then you're going to get an automatic speed violation. We've seen this work in other states, in Maryland, and we've had it now for a couple of years in Pennsylvania. We're looking to expand it and reauthorize it, and we think that's something. Now, the thing is, you get ample warning. There's a lot of signage involved.
Sure.
If you want to know where those cameras are, you can actually go on the internet and see where they are. So it's not like it's a secret, or it's not like the old electronic version of the cop behind the billboard. But you'll know, and it's very, very. It's communicated very well to people, but the bottom line is you don't have to have a policeman out there now in order to get a ticket.
Yeah. Now, one of the numbers that you point out, and I'll read here, nearly 9 out of 10 work zone fatalities are among the traveling public, not construction workers.
That's true, and that, again, that's the point is that by speeding, you're endangering yourself more and whoever is in the car with you, your family, your children. There's no reason to be going at some of these breakneck speeds that people are traveling along the highways and through work zones. It's very difficult to stay in control. The other thing we've seen in addition to work zones is some of the service vehicles and breakdowns that are on the shoulder, and tow truck operators. I mean, a lot of those people are in serious danger as well. So we have a law that requires you to move over in those instances.
Oh, sure.
Again, it's a little off the work zone topic, but still it's every bit as important that that people understand that, particularly on interstates and high-speed highways, you have to pay very close attention. 65 miles an hour should be fast enough.
Yeah, and the other aspect of this is we have in most places we got road and construction and repair, and the traffic flow is maintained.
Right.
It's not like you got to do a detour.
I mean, in some, there's been some test projects where they shut the entire roadway down. One of the things that on the turnpike that we are looking at is some of this, what they call accelerated bridge projects, where they literally build the bridge deck off to the side and then close the roadway for the weekend and roll it on. So we are looking at some of that technology. It seems to be working, but it's very difficult to shut a roadway down for 2 weeks or 3 weeks in order, how are you going to do that on an interstate? So we have to build it under traffic, and we have to do it at night, and that makes it even more dangerous.
More difficult, yeah. And the other thing is bridge renovation is hugely important given the age of some of these bridges, and as well as our roads in a huge state.
You look at the turnpike as an 80-year-old highway, and you think about it, it was a absolute technology marvel in the 1940s when it was built. We've had 3 generations that take this type of roadway for granted, either the turnpike or interstates. But you're right, age. Wear and tear, weather, geography. We're an old state, we're a cold state, and we're wet, and that plays havoc on concrete. You have to rehabilitate it. You have to repave it. We're building longer life pavements, but they don't last forever. And as we've said before, we have very, very few new highways. We're rehabilitating old ones. That means under traffic, and ask people to slow down.
All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, you stay well.